morning. Today is Thursday, May 30th, 2024. We are calling a special Municipal Service and Properties Committee to order. Madam Secretary, can you call the roll?
Bishop.
Here.
Starr.
Present.
Harrison. Jones. Casey.
Present.
Kelly.
Present.
Moore. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Could you mark down excused absence for Councilman Anthony Harrison? All right, thank you. So we're going to hear a presentation on ordinance number 521, 2024. Chief, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Thank you very much. Bonnie Teowin, Chief Operating Officer for the City of Cleveland. Appreciate your time today to go over our proposal for the separation of Parks and Rec from Public Works. As you guys know, for many years, Public Works consisted of 8 different divisions, and with our new director, Frank Williams, we've had discussions about the separation of Parks and Rec to really emphasize a comprehensive approach to our Parks and Rec department. Today I'd like to go over a brief presentation on what that looks like with your indulgence. As you probably know, in 2023, we worked with EY to develop a strategic plan for the administration and how we move forward in the next 10 years. Based on that strategic plan.
Chief, if you can,
sorry.
with the mic.
Yep.
So.
Based on that, our goals of the strategic plan was to inspire confidence by delivering reliable, efficient city services and create the conditions for all members of our community to thrive. And there's 4 focused areas in that strategic plan: modernizing and optimizing city operations, create conditions for employees to thrive, improve the user experience and ease to access city services, and secure the city's future finances. And as we talk about the separation of Parks and Rec, keep these in mind, and we hope that we establish these goals and focus areas. This was the first study that was done. Also, hopefully, as you remember, there was a study also done by Olin. Just last week, there were several open houses that Olin presented. We hired Olin in November of 2022. They've been in the data collection process. They've had multiple community meetings and points of contact, over 1,500. And as I said last week, they had several open houses throughout the city to further develop their plan and recommendations for the next 15 years. And with that, we've asked them to specifically make a recommendation for what the structure of our Parks and Rec department should look like. We utilized these 2 studies to develop the first steps in an evolution to a future state for our Parks and Rec department. So why are we doing this? We want to make sure that to streamline the city services and create a more comprehensive approach to managing and operating the city's parks and recreation centers. We want to allow the director to work exclusively and comprehensively on a vision for our Parks and Rec and create a setting for partnerships. And one of the things, as we develop our first steps in the separation, we wanted to ensure that the separation was budget and labor neutral on day one. And this is a key as I present the proposed separation. So, as I said before, the Department of Public Works has 10 different divisions. Which is Frank sitting here, will agree that is a lot to handle. So with that being said, we're make a recommendation to separate the Parks and Rec Department from Public Works. Public Works, many of the divisions will stay as is. In this presentation, you can see the administrative division, the streets division, waste, motor vehicle maintenance, property management, traffic, and parking will all remain in Public Works. What we're proposing to separate is approximately half of the administration group will come over to support the Parks and Rec Department. Within that, there's oversight for the small enterprises of Highland Golf Course, West Side Market, the Recreation Division. A portion of the Park Maintenance Division will come over, the majority of it minus vacant lots, and then Public Auditorium, which includes special events. And this is really the key as you review the departments or the divisions of what will remain and what will stay in Public Works and what will be separated from the Parks and Recreation Department. So a quick timeline. We've advertised and we've interviewed a future director of the Parks and Recreation Department. I met with the individual council members to review this plan, and we introduced to council on May 6th. And then we're here today to deliberate, answer any questions you may have. And move forward from here. The budget part of this, we're proposing that in the new year of 2025, that the budget will be transferred over to the new Department of Parks and Rec. Our goal with all of this is to kind of keep it as simple as possible, understanding that, this is the first step in an evolution. We realize that, there's a lot. There's a lot of recommendations in both of the studies as far as where we want to be. And I anticipate with our new director and having input from that director that we can evolve into, something different than day one, but, to something that is functioning better, that may have opportunities for alternate funding, so that we can provide a better service to our residents. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Chief, when you, just to go back just a couple minutes ago when you said about your desire or your goals to, for Parks and Rec, could you repeat that? I'm not exactly sure what.
Sure. Really it's to streamline our city services and, to make sure that there's a comprehensive approach to our Parks and Rec. To some extent, because the Department of Public Works is so large, it's hard to have, very specific and strategic goals for the Parks and Rec. And also, we seem to be more reactive with that. My hope and a goal is that we can be more proactive, that we can grow the department and, something as simple as looking at how we increase our revenues specifically for the Parks and Rec would help in how we run our facilities and our parks. So, I believe we need to have a dedicated director, that's experienced in that area, that's familiar with those areas on how we can grow not only the revenues, but also the programs.
Okay, so the reason why I asked is that, I personally want to see an improvement in Parks and Rec, but I also want to receive an improvement in our delivery of service overall to our residents. I mean, across all of our divisions, especially when it comes to the maintenance of our buildings, the maintenance of our parks, the maintenance of our neighborhoods. We want to see an improvement across all services. And, I was hopeful that we have a focus that, we're going to improve all of our city services, not just Parks and Rec. And of course, Parks and Rec is very important. But I wanted, this member, I want improvements across all of our divisions, okay?
And
I got-
if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
And I appreciate that, and I share that vision with you. You know, I think, you know, we're talking about the separation of Parks and Recs, but what that does is it allows our current director, Frank Williams, and you guys probably talk to him on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and he's pulled in a bunch of different directions. The comprehensive approach and, you know, the specific goals for Parks and Rec, it also frees up time for Director Williams to also emphasize and, you know, a more strategic approach on the divisions that he has left. And Frank, I don't know if you want to mention anything, you know, as far as the extra time he's going to have on his hands, because he doesn't have to deal with Parks and Rec.
To the chair, I would agree to an extent, because in theory there should be the opportunity for me to be able to focus on the disciplines that are really within a public works organization. Typically, when you interface with other cities and talk about best management practices, being able to ingest them or communicate with other groups. Typically, Parks and Rec is not in public works, so there's a disconnect with us from most cities in the country, especially our size. So the hope is that we can get a bit more refined, and I would just probably especially expound on the fact that I've been told that it's the evolution, so it's the start. This is just the start of it. I do expect to make some more recommendations for how we move forward after this year, but this does get us much more aligned with other cities. For example, if I was to go to every conference and every communication that happens throughout the country on all of our departments, I would be gone at least twice a month all year long just to be able to get information to bring back to Cleveland. So this actually frees me up to be more focused on some of those things that we need to get better at going forward.
Okay. Let me start with a couple of questions I have in the legislation. First, Chief, there is a lot of fees listed in the legislation on a lot of different divisions. Are any of those fees, permits, rates, are any of those fees unchanged from what they have been prior to this piece of legislation? Are they unchanged or altered in any kind of way?
Thank you to the chair. We were very specific and wanted to keep this as simple and clean as possible. We have changed no rates in any of the legislation. We literally just changed it from one chapter to another.
Okay. All right. Also, can we get a breakdown of the number of employees in each department, in each division?
Yes.
I know you don't have that now. I'm assuming you don't have that now, but we want a breakdown of all the number of employees in each division as it relates to everything under your hat in Public Works and MOCAP.
Okay.
Okay?
MOCAP as well?
Yes, MOCAP as
Okay.
well. All right.
To the chair.
Go ahead.
Just for clarification, would you like seasonal too, or just full-time?
If you can break it up with the seasonal also, you know, we want full-time mainly, but, you know, you can state that we know certain divisions have high number of seasonal. So my next question is to you, Chief, is that the splitting of the department, and specifically I want to ask you about MOCAP and real estate, okay? Is MOCAP and real estate related? Is the real estate, are our buildings, what division is our buildings kind of housed in? Is that real estate?
So
Like City Hall and public auditorium and
So
our police stations?
to the chair, It's basically located, so we have our architectural division in MoCap, which is responsible for the capital projects
Okay.
for all of our properties. Our real estate division is
Okay.
also under MoCap. However, the property maintenance, where our trades sit, is actually in Public Works, and that's proposed to remain in Public Works.
Okay, why shouldn't we have all of our properties, our buildings, and the maintenance of our buildings? Why should that be under one director instead of two directors?
So, thank you to the chair. Thank you for that question, and that's part of the evolution process. Part of the EY study also looked at a real estate division, and all of our properties, whether it's real estate that sits in our land banks under community development, under MoCap, economic development. We're looking right now at the best way to structure that. So that's part of the evolution and part of the, stay tuned for next year, that it's something that we're going to be looking at, and we'll probably come to you in the future with a recommendation on how that should be structured.
So this piece,
It's hard for me to hear you.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
okay, so this piece of legislation is sort of like the first step. It's incomplete.
That's correct.
Okay, now my next question is about the function of our cutting our grass, whether it be vacant lots, whether it be public spaces, whether it be vacant properties. Shouldn't that be under one person's control, the function of cutting grasses? And I'm trying to understand why are we going to shift this part of that service that we provide to one director, and then this director over here is going to have something else. Could you explain that and the reason behind that?
Sure, thank you to the chair. The maintenance of the parks and the fields is more program-driven. So whenever there's a tournament, whenever there's league play, you want to make sure that your fields are maintained. The vacant lots, and maybe the director can expand a little bit on that, that's a maintenance issue. There's a thought that some of our fields and our parks are being neglected because it's lumped in with our vacant lots. I don't think that's necessarily true because we have two separate crews. But I think it lets us focus more on our fields and our parks that should be maintained at a higher level. And then the director will still be responsible for the vacant lots and structures, and I'll let you add anything.
To the chair, also I did probably volunteered to keep them only because bringing in a new director and the problem that we have with the vacant lots and vacant structures, I'm trying to take stock of the program. Commissioner Porch is helping me to revitalize the program and really level set it. As I mentioned when I came in, we have to look at this program from a place of whether we're going to continue with the seasonal employee approach to it, and also with the advancing of the inventory of vacant lots and properties. Really, what we need is, as it relates to equipment for these programs going forward. So I thought it would be best to keep it in Public Works to oversee that, at least for the near future. And as Chief mentioned, with that evolution, we will take a look at it as we move forward. But I didn't think it would be fair to bring in a new director with such a program that is such in flux and bury the new person. So it's my intent to oversee the program, at least for the near future, to help develop it and right size it for the inventory that we have that continues to grow.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Director. Okay, Chief. Another question, and this question is coming from Councilwoman Spencer and Councilman Slife. You mentioned about the ball fields and our spaces for programs where we have a lot of our football fields, our baseball fields, is programmatic, is what you called it. And you want to keep that under that hat. Now, for our urban forestry, do we want to move urban forestry to more of an operational type of division where they do have operations instead of mostly programs? Because as it states now, if it's under property, it's under park maintenance, it's going to be mostly programs, right? Instead of operations. So could you touch on that?
Thank you for the question. And the director and I had a lot of conversations about where forestry, urban forestry should sit. Based on the studies and other best practices from other communities, 4 out of 5 that EY looked at, that forestry was under the Parks Department. And, as I started thinking about it, is by having forestry under the Parks Division, you're looking at, the tree canopy as you're trying to cultivate it as a park, as opposed to just maintain it. So initially, we're trying to catch up and we're trying to maintain. But in the long run, in the long term, we're trying to cultivate, tree canopies, which fits more in line with the parks as opposed to just public works and maintaining it. Do you want to add anything, Frank?
So now, could you touch on the tree canopy in the right-of-way? First, we got a tree canopy in the right-of-way. We got a tree canopy on our vacant lots, right, that we have to maintain. Unfortunately, we have to maintain those. So how would keeping urban forestry under park maintenance be beneficial if we have to maintain all those trees in vacant lots? And vacant lots is in streets, right? So we got one division working in vacant lots, and then we got another division and working in vacant lots. I'm confused. I mean, when we talk about our vacant lots, especially when we get calls about vacant lots, we don't know how are we going to know who to call? Do we call park maintenance, or do we call streets? So that's confusing for the members, and I'm sure it's going to be confusing for our public and our citizens. So could you talk about that? How we can have in a vacant lot, how we can have 2 different divisions servicing that under 2 different directors?
To the chair, I think looking at it, although that division is programmatic, there are operational portions of it. So, for example, when you mentioned the vacant lots, if there's a tree in a vacant lot, we would still be the contact in Public Works for anything in the vacant lots, and we would contact urban forestry on behalf of whatever that issue is in that vacant lot. So it wouldn't be 2 different calls or anything like that. Since the vacant lot program would still be in Public Works, I would be your first stop, and then I would triage and call in other divisions or other departments. I mean, keep in mind, there are times where I have to call utilities for help in a vacant lot as well. So, but it still would come to us first, and then we would distribute and get with any partners that we might need assistance with inside that vacant lot.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to my vice chair. We're going to start taking questions from members. I'm going to first go to my vice chair, Councilman Starr.
Hey, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chief, as well as Director Williams. First, I'll say thank you to the both of you for meeting with us. Okay. So one of the things that I definitely will have, I know, Director, your department is working on getting us an inventory. Can you get us an inventory of all the equipment from the whole Public Works? One of the things I'm trying to look at is what we have in stock as far as just maintenance. One of the things that you hear from, just different individuals in passing, as they may work in Public Works, may work for the city, they mention different equipment, tools that they may have or tools that they would like, and I would definitely like to take a deep dive with you all to discuss what we have purchased prior to you getting here, prior to me getting here, and if we have passed ordinances to purchase these things, figuring out where the money actually went, if we did purchase those supplies, so we can revamp some of the tools that we may need. One of the biggest things I'm looking at is I would say commend you for saying you want to take on vacant lots yourself and keep it. Because one of the things I was thinking of as I was looking at this is,
I'm a glutton for punishment.
yeah,
sir.
like how do we, when you think about vacant lot maintenance and taking that, possibly creating something else with it. And what I mean by that is we have so many vacant lots because we have so many undeveloped land because there were either old properties that got tore down and things changed. So it does take a degree of work, skills, training to be able to get seasoned employees to get involved in that. And I know we're not talking about, what's their name, Snyder? But I just like them. Their services, I don't know how they keep getting all the contracts to be the only person to be able to find employees. I think we need to do away with them and really find some different organizations like Minuteman to figure out. I think Minuteman probably made a bid to be able to get in it, and I respect Minuteman. Like, hey, if I can't be all in, I don't want just parts when I know I can do great work. So that's Snyder. I know we'll talk about that, but definitely looking into the vacant lot system, would it been under you? And I know this would be meaning the commissioner will work directly with you, like it's currently going, right? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the council member, right now what we established or are establishing in Public Works is that program is actually going to function out of my office so that I can really dig into it, really make the right recommendations for equipment and processes going forward. Like you mentioned, the staffing. I struggle with the staffing being seasonal in that vein. It's tough to get folk in and get them committed to the work and keep them consistent. We have various issues with the staffing in general, and I think that we may need to look at a different approach going forward. Also, this is our second year of doing the pilot with the local contractors. We're getting started a little late this year, but that's also something that I want to continue to cultivate going forward. I have some, Chief and I have talked about some approaches for next season that we want to possibly implement to better the program. And again, I go back to saying equipment. The realities of this program is the inventory has increased so much against the amount of equipment that we have. We need to reinvest in that equipment. But what you have to look at is the right equipment for the types of the properties that we have. It's just not about going and buying a bunch of mowers or trying to be cheap about it or cost or frugal about it. But we have to buy the correct equipment so that we can get into a pace once weather breaks. We can be right on top of these vacant lots and properties, and also have enough of a presence throughout all the city, spread out and working in a way that's efficient but also is safe.
Oh, I think that is really, I think you touched on some few points, Director. The equipment, it can't be just, we bought everything from Home Depot.
Right.
And it was just something we grabbed down in the steel yard real quick to try to get something figured out. So I look forward to working with you as well as the department. And to you, Chief, please don't shortchange us on the budget. Let us know what we actually need, because if we have had this problem for numerous years, before obviously we here at the table, some of us who came in on this term, we've been dealing with these issues. Let's come up with an actual plan to figure out something. But a question I definitely came to mind to Chief would be, are there any additional dollars or grants that's available from the federal government or from the state that helps improve municipal services, such as different equipment that can be purchased, as far as grants or money that we can go after to be able to improve the infrastructure? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilman, thank you for the question. That's exactly why we are interested in making this separation, because it allows us to have the emphasis, the time, for lack of a better word, to actually pursue some of these grants, to educate ourselves on the grants that are available, and actually applying for those grants. When I look at Parks and Rec And I realize we're including Public Works in this also, but I'm going to use Parks and Recs as an example. There's so many opportunities for grants. Cleveland is lucky to have so many philanthropy groups that love to invest in parks. And my goal with the Parks and Rec Department is to, look for additional revenue sources, and that a large part of that being grants. If we can do that, it will help us on our operational side and on our programming side, as well as our capital side. There's a lot that I think we can do on the Parks and Rec side, and that will help hopefully free up some revenues that we can distribute in other areas like Public Works.
Also, through the chair to the council member, to expound, one of the things also with these programs that we're talking about is data. We have to be able to, you can't apply for a grant or those things without good data. And so these programs have to be refined a bit to be able to really extrapolate the right data and be able to use the data to actually make those asks or make those operational decisions. You and I both know that we really don't even know exactly how many vacant lots we have. I find out about a new vacant lot almost every other day that I didn't know existed. That even that coordination between building and housing, when a house gets demolished and when that becomes my responsibility, all those things are part of this process that I wanted to bring into my office, really refine and really be able to have a thoughtful program that makes sense to not only the staffing but also to the residents.
That is so great. That's very important. Just getting that system in place, but also making sure we modernize it. Technology is great if we use it right, to be able to input it the minute it passed or the minute it come down, so we can be on the lookout. Because obviously, you look up, it'd be winter, then it's summer again. Next, it's like you got this grass high up,
right.
And it wasn't on the radar last 2 years, but now it's on the radar, and now it's becoming a system. So I think that was great. One other question I definitely want to talk about is within the streets. Through the chair, through the street division, I know we do resurfaces throughout the year, definitely around this time frame. Have we explored different options of adding the speed table, asphalt into the streets, similar to how it is done in Washington, D.C. So therefore, I know I got an email about some speed tables that we're going to add in Ward 5 and positioning them. And I know those are the actual table, but are there a way, as far as cost, for if we say, for instance, I know I have about eight or nine streets that I'm resurfacing this year. If we were able to say, within that distance, we can add the additional asphalt to be able to create those speed humps in those areas. Is that something that we're able to do through the chair?
Through the chair, you must have been in some of our meetings because we're actually piloting that this year.
Okay.
We're working with Ms. Callie Merceman that handles some of the mobility types of things, also with our traffic engineering group to help us to be thoughtful about where they go and if they're warranted on a particular roadway, and then adding it into the actual resurfacing project. We've been working with staff, and we're actually looking to do our first one here in the next week or two.
Okay, and to that point, if you want,
In-house.
yes, if you would like, or if you want to experiment in Ward 5, every street that I sent over, you can just add it. I think that'd be a great data, because most of the streets that we resurfacing from the council's allocation are some side streets, and I think one of the main issues that we are dealing with, since we have over, I believe, almost 11,000 streets, a lot of our side streets are the places where people are speeding, and then you have kids crossing and different scares that you have. And I know I had a young kid lose their life due to that happening over in Carver Park area. So definitely looking at exploring those side streets would be great. But I definitely had to go into some questions about park and recreation, especially to the chief. Now, once we get this director in place, I would definitely want to sit down with this director, because there's some things that we need to focus on when it comes to parks and recreation. One of the things that I look at is the maintenance. The maintenance of our facilities, I don't know who's responsible for it, but that deep dive cleaning Now, obviously, you can get staff to do some sweeping after kids eat, wipe down tables. Those things are normal, but that deep dive of keeping the floor waxed, I know most of the times I was a firm believer that a gym floor should be waxed at least 4 or 5 times a year. That's just so you can keep that floor up and those type of things, but then also inside the restrooms, public ways, just having that general maintenance on a daily basis. I wanted to ask to the chair, do we have a maintenance service cleaning company that comes into any of our 20-plus recreation centers or family resource centers, through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilman, currently we do not have outside services that come into our rec centers. The majority of the cleaning is done with in-house staff. I do not disagree with you that they need to be attended to better. We need to increase our staffing levels, first custodians and our municipal laborers, to help with some of the deep cleaning. We have had some conversations with property management in regard to the cleaning of our floors and putting together crew that they will go around in after closing of the rec centers and do some deep cleaning for us in the rec centers. We haven't developed that yet, but those types of things are in the discussions part of it. But I think that's a perfect example of some of the low-hanging fruit that the new director, when they come in, they can look at those things and figure out what that program should look like.
Okay, and so then my other question would be, so to the chair, who cleans up our other facilities currently in the city? Like City Hall, for example, who does the maintenance and cleaning, keeping this facility cleaned?
Through the chair to the councilman, it would be the same type of staff, custodial services, and some of our municipal laborers.
And so is there a way that, I know we got to get a director in, I know this is possibly trying to go into effect for 2025 with the actual separation of these divisions, but I'm still concerned with, we just went through a pandemic. And we had a pandemic, and from my nurse cousins and friends, when I first asked about that, it was just basically about maintenance and cleanliness of individuals, which spread those germs, which created the COVID that spread through. So when I'm thinking about park and recreationists, if we don't have a deep cleaning system in place where we have a company that cleans them every day, that is something that is concerning for me. Obviously, I came from the nonprofit sector in which we had a cleaning services at 50 locations. That came through and kept the facilities clean. And then as an employee, we had to make sure we keep our area clean on an update. But every night, someone came and did the deep dive clean to make sure floors are mopped, walls are wiped down. And then 4 times out the year, they would do the extra waxing of different floors just to try to keep some stuff in place. So I think that is something we need to explore sooner than later, because when we looked at the surveys and we looked at what residents are saying, it's the upkeep. If it's not a beautiful facility, if the maintenance not there, nobody wants to actually use the equipment. And I think we do have a number of facilities that people can actually utilize. But then also some things that I definitely will be wanting to look at with discussing with this new director is just obviously the salary of staff. When you work in this type of field of park and recreation, you're sacrificing a lot, such as your family, to be able to work second shift, to be able to say from 11 o'clock to 9 or 8 o'clock sometimes, because you never know what goes on in our rec centers. We can't be paying them the lowest of the money, but expecting them to be a part of the solution, such as programming, such as getting our kids into our rec centers, providing services for us. So I definitely would want that director to look at a pay scale, and looking at an increase, but also understanding that if we hire certain people who have enough experience, their value and their salary starting wages can't be equal. That ain't equity. If I put in 20 years of working in recreation and I eventually get promoted from being a, I think, was it recreational 2 to a center manager, after I done put in all these 15 to 20 years, I got to start at that same 50 level or that range level. I should be able to have a pay scale to pay increase based on the work and experience and the services that I bring, which is very important. But then also an overall SWOT analysis of the recreation center so we can have honest feedback from our staff to be able to have them tell us what they would like to see in the recreation. How can they get these programs? What type of partnerships exist? What partnership doesn't exist? Prime example, I believe we should have a robust partnership. Prime example, I have Central Recreation in Lonnie Burton. The partnerships with the schools. I have Alfred A. Bennett, George Washington Carver, School of Arts, Marion Sterling, all within walking distance. There should be a partnership with the recreation. A partnership that exists in which they know what's going on with the schools, the kids know what's going on with the program, and they're able to help provide some recreation. There should be some cross partnerships that I think can help us out. And then also just understanding the programs. The programs have to be modernized. We can't be expecting tournaments and I don't got basketballs. We can't be talking about game room equipment, but I don't got a TV for the game system. I can't be talking about having events and programs, but we don't have incentives. We have to incentivize our kids to be able to have something in the budget. There should be a budget set forth for each rec center for different incentives, and that is going to be able to draw them into it. But then also, I believe cultivating our relationships with our 3 major sports teams. One thing I would definitely say, Guardians fund baseball for all in Northeast Ohio without a question. Anything we need for baseball, Guardians have it. Basketball, the Cavs have done some great things, but there's a little bit more that they can do, and the Browns, non-existence. How do we hold them accountable as a team? Not just the council, not just the administration, but as a team and say, hey, you're a major player and a major stakeholder in our neighborhood, and we need you to invest more. We need you to do more. And those are just some things that I just definitely want to have. But then my last question, Chair, and I'll yell the floor. I know I'm way over time. When I look at park and recreation, I see we got, through the administration, we got Highland Golf Course, then we got Westside Market. But when we looked at the past ordinances and the charter, we used to have Eastside Market. So what happened to create a system in which Eastside Market don't get no love as the Westside Market does under our leadership? And what's the change for that, or why that doesn't exist?
Through the chair to the councilman, the East Side Market, there's a couple of ancillary items that were within the budget that I chose not to show here. But the East Side Market would be similar to the West Side Market. You know, it's an agreement that we have with Neon, I believe, to run. Don't quote me on that, but it will continue. It will continue to exist as it does now.
Okay, because when I look at the organizational structure from 2009 to 2011, we had the West Side Market under Parks, Recreation, and Properties. Then when we get to 2012 to 2014, when that change happened, we still got East Side and West Side Market. But right now, as it exists right now with the organizational structure in 2015, from Ordinance 1330-2010, it has West Side Market, but it no longer shows the East Side Market. So is it safe for me to say that the city of Cleveland only support the West Side Market and not the East Side Market? Through the chair?
Yeah, through the chair to the council, and the East Side Market is still open. We still support it. It's just not shown here. So nothing with that would change because of this reorganization.
And when you say change to the chair, to the chief, meaning what is our current relationship with the East Side Market? Because for 3 years I've seen us allocate additional funding to the West Side Market, and for 3 years I haven't seen no allocation to any funding to the East Side Market.
Do you know what that is? Yeah, I'll have to, I apologize. I'll have to get the detail on that. I know that we own the property. And there's an agreement to run that, but I'll have to get more details and provide that to you.
All right, thank you so much, and I yield, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. I'm going to go to Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just start out by saying this is certainly, I support the reorganization, and it's a long time coming. When the organization was put together the way it is right now, I think that the previous administration thought that this would be a great concept, and I know that there had been studies that talked about how you consolidate and maybe possibly save funds or resources. But over time, it proved to be a problem in a number of areas and a breakdown. And part of that is because the responsibility was shouldered on just one person. And that can be overwhelming. And so when we have an organization that is so big as this one has become and the way it has become, you know, it can suck, like you heard the director make the comment that he's a glutton for punishment. And the issue is he's going to get punished. He's sitting in the hot seat. And when these people out here, I know I can speak for my neighborhood, I know that my other colleagues have had comments about public service. And public service and city works and how it's put together is fundamentally the major organ in this city that does all the work. And we rely upon public works to do our streets, to do repaving in our neighborhoods. Over the space and time when I came back, Mr. Chairman, there was only $4 million put into the streets program to do side streets. I thought that was horrible. My argument and contention was, how do we put more money into the streets program? This is a major city. We shouldn't be putting $4 million in this. We should be putting $20 million into this. And I argued then with Kevin Kelly, the president of City Council, and went and took the issue to the mayor that we're a major city. I cannot afford, my residents, when they punch and beat on me and make those phone calls, they want results. They send an elected official to come down here to get the results they need to change the quality of life that's so negative for them that they have decided that they're going to move out of the city of Cleveland because it's just too broke down. And when you run into one chunk hole and fall into a third world country, that's a problem. I'm appreciative that the previous administration and this administration is continuing to invest into the streets program. I'm thankful, and I give kudos to Justin Bibb and his administration for taking this department and splitting it up. Each year, Mr. Chairman, you've heard me talk about vacant lots. It is one of those issues that cuts me up one side of my soul and splits me down the next side of my soul. Because no matter where I go in that neighborhood, that's one of the #1 issues every time it comes around the first of the quarter of this year. And I've sat here at this table for 6.5 years. Before this director came in here, before Frank Williams got in here, when Cox was in here, and had issues with him at this table, and you can attest that. I think my colleague, Mrs. Rebecca Maurer, when she first came in here, she cut her teeth in a conversation about how bad the program was, and we got in a little tiff on the table. And you remember that, don't you? I got a memory on it.
He has a long memory.
Yeah, I do. And you were feeling some kind of way, but you just didn't know. When you've had an opportunity to go down there and see the operation, so I'm glad to hear the director say that we're going to really invest in some good equipment, because I'm going to tell you, I was lied here at the table. And I was told that we didn't need any money to upgrade and put improvements in that and give the men and women like the Commissioner Toy that you have in the back there the tools that they need to have to be able to get the job done. But when you have citizens, Mr. Chairman, to the director, that whoop the hell out of you day in and day out about these same issues, what is wrong with you guys? What's the problem? I call every year. This is them saying this. I call every year, and this grass is high. Can you please get someone out to cut it? Can you please do something about it? And so for me, it's stressful, because I come and beat this horse over here, and there's no movement at all. None. Zero zilch. And it wasn't until Mr. Williams, and I've given Frank, I think I'm the only council member have said Frank Williams is a good director, and I want to keep him. And I've even told, I've even told, no, listen, I tell the truth, and some folks may not like it. And I don't care, because I'm too old to care about what you like. What I do care about, what's important to me as an elected official, what's important to the mayor as the mayor of the city of Cleveland, is to have constituents that are happy. So I try to do everything I can to make these people out here happy. And if I'm hoping and praying that you, Mr. Williams, are successful with the vacant lots program, that you get the equipment that you need, that you get the manpower. And let me just say this, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Williams, the culture. Changing the culture matters. My colleague, Mr. Starr, talked about how is it that we're continuing to use the same contractors that are continuing to give us the same issues that we have year in and year out. We're not having quality workers, having a super turnaround, having programs that are in place that's supposed to be managed a certain way. Because when I went down there, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, what was certain that was in play is that there was a program in place, that there was structure in place. But then following that structure, making sure that we have the right equipment, making sure that the people are properly trained is important. And I'll say, I don't want people to take what I have to say at this table personal, because it's not personal. This is business. When you make me look bad, and I keep telling you over and over and over again, and you hear me coming down here with the passion I have the passion to do whatever I hope that I can do. I've even, Mr. Chairman, to the chief, have taken my own lawnmower, my own trucks, my own labor power, just to cut the grass, clean up the debris and illegal dump debris before this mayor came into power. Now, what I would say my improvements have been, Mr. Williams have done a great job in getting up those illegal dumps and got up an illegal dump that was over here, a whole bunch of tires, and picked them up. So I'm appreciative and thankful for that. And I want to continue to work with you to give you the tools necessary, and I'm supporting this splitting up. And then as I look at the chart today, I want to make this, Mr. Chairman, maybe we might need to split it up some more. You know, as I look at it right now, because I want people to have the ability and capacity to be successful. So when we look at this chart as it is right now, who we have over MoCap? Is that Mr. DeRosa?
Yes, it is.
And then you're the big chief at the top, right? And then under Public Works, is that you, Mr. Williams?
Yes, sir.
You're going to be under that? And then, Mr. Chairman, who's going to be over Parks and Recreation?
Through the chair to the councilman, that's we are interviewing for a director of Parks and Rec, so that's to be determined.
Okay. And may I make a suggestion if I can? Whoever we get, let's see if we get someone that has some experience in doing it and has been there and done that. And I'll say this, Chief, we're so blessed to have you because of your background and the work that you've done, and we know that you have done this work. We need to have someone that's over Parks and Recreation. Especially one of the things that we talked about is just, and you've had the foresight to put together a process of interviewing council members in the community of what they want to see the recreations look like and stuff like that. I think some of the material that was given will certainly be helpful for whoever the new director is to make sure that they go in there and they know how to clean a floor. And I'll tell you, one of the things that was really hurtful for me coming in as a first-year councilman in 2018 was going into a facility and the management and the team. When I looked around, I said, do you see a problem here? And they couldn't see the problem that the floor was dirty. They didn't, this place smelled like mold. It was like they had become immune to it. So this is just the way it is. So one of the things that's going to be a challenge, I see, Mr. Chairman, is a little bit more house cleaning in terms of getting those people who are just there and not doing anything, cutting that weight out and get them out of here. And get people who want to work, who wants to come and work. In fact, the city's paying good, isn't it? I would presume. Madam Chairwoman, to the chief?
So through the chair to the council, our custodians are union labor forces. They've negotiated the contract, and we have agreed on the wages for those through contract negotiations.
Okay, so now who's gonna, and that would be the new Parks and Recreation person, right? That you're looking for, that's gonna be over the custodians?
One of the recommendations that we'll do in the future is that each of the rec centers will have their own custodians. Currently, as it stands now, property management is responsible for all the custodians, and they get distributed throughout the city. But we want to have more accountability within the rec centers, and our recommendation will be to have custodians report directly to each of the center managers.
Okay, so then the center managers for the recreational facilities would have their own cleaning crew and company and be responsible for the cleaning of, is it also the maintenance too?
Through the chair to the councilman, as of right now, the maintenance through our trades is through our property management. At this time, I don't see that changing in the near future. If you look at the recommendations that our consultant Olin has made, their 15-year plan is having a self-contained maintenance division underneath the Parks and Rec that can address that. Honestly, as long as we're solely funded by the general fund, I'm not sure we can afford to do that. So it's we will continue to run it through Public Works, through the property maintenance. But it gets down to the evolution and where we want to be and where our goals are. When we start talking about additional revenue sources and having that money stay within the Parks and Rec division, that could be something that we look to in the future, is that they have trades that work directly for the Parks and Rec department. But that's to be determined, and that's at a later date. But it's part of the evolution process.
Well, I think that this is good because you're just not sitting there and just doing the same old thing. So I'm certainly supportive of it. I would say that I like the ideal that now these managers of these actual facilities will be fundamentally responsible on how clean their space is supposed to be. And it was good to, I think I asked a question and you said, hey, they even have checklists. So I didn't even know they had checklists. So I had said, well, do you have a checklist? Do we need to create one? And you said, well, it's already there. So it would be good to see how well they take care of that. And I would presume, do we have a grading process on that, maybe somewhere down the line, of how we hold those managers accountable for keeping their places clean?
Again, through the chair to council men, that KPIs are important in everything we do. Director Williams preaches that all the time, that we have to have things that we can measure to hold our staff accountable for what they should be doing. Currently, that doesn't exist in the rec centers, but as we get our new director, again, I think that those are low-hanging fruits that we can develop and see and start measuring. You got to have the data to measure. Frank's Director Williams is a component proponent of that, and that's where we need to be in everything that we do here at the city.
Okay, and so understanding up under Public Works, you have the Public Works Administration that's fundamentally going to administer all of, I would presume that would be payroll too, for that entire section that's up under that?
That's correct.
And then you have the streets, and the streets only proposition and working with vacant lots would only be with, how would streets work with it? Would it be just more than, would it be structures and vacant lots, or just be with, how does that work?
Through the chair to the council member, it will remain as is, just out of my office, and that does include structures, vacant lots and structures. We're working right now with building and housing to be able to develop a program for occupied structures that are out of compliance as well, but that's going to be a little bit in the future.
Okay, so then it's just stating that it's going to be up under streets, or, I mean, I guess, so would that be up under Randy Scott?
Through the chair to the council member, we've decided internally that it will actually be in my office. Directly, I'll be overseeing it with a manager. In the future, as we talk about that evolution, we were kind of thinking that it may make the most sense to end up under streets, but that'll be later on if we determine that. I wanted to have direct contact with this program to right-size it and make sure that we have a direction and a vision for it going forward before placing it underneath another division.
So do we have, because I'm going to tell you, Mr. Chairman, I'm for this. How much equipment do you need? Because you made the comment, and I'm in absolute agreement to the comment you made earlier because I've been out at the station. I know that the equipment they got is not commercial. Some of it looks commercial or it's been worn out. And I said at this table, when you may have heard me say the comments, they lied to me because I asked them about the equipment. Council approved the equipment in 2018, came back and approved some more equipment in 2019. No, we were told they didn't need it in 2018. Came back and improved the equipment in 2019 and didn't see any real movement of equipment coming in until 2021. And then we didn't have the people who were on the grounds who were doing the work didn't have the equipment fundamentally to do the work. So if you're able to get this in, I mean, I think you made comment earlier the last time you were at the table that you have an equipment backlog. Is that for everywhere or is that for this particular department?
Through the chair to the council member, during those times, of course, I wasn't here, but those are the times when the supply chain issues did become very real throughout that time, and we're still dealing with them now. We still have about an 12 to 18 month lead time on commercial tractors. The other thing that we're looking at, we are being very aggressive about bringing in other vendors with other equipment, newer equipment with newer attachments, especially we were talking about flail mowers and things of that sort that we want to take a look at. That's also why I mentioned the last time we talked about this at one of the operational reviews that we're going to start demoing and also bringing folk in and possibly renting things. One of the things that we have to make sure of is we have to get equipment in the staff's hand and let them use it and make sure that it's the right equipment before we make ad hoc purchases and just drop equipment on staff, and then they're looking at us like, why would you buy this? You know, those pieces of equipment get mothballed because they don't like them and don't use them. So we want to make sure that we're thoughtful with every dollar that we spend. So that really means making sure to, really look at the best management practices in this space, but also looking at the process itself. Just throwing equipment at the issue won't fix it. It's also got to be the process, and we need to look at how we split the city up. We've been using 292 subsections for, I don't know, like 20 years. And to me, it's unwildly. It's confusing the residents because of where they stop and start. Sometimes a subsection can stop in the middle of at an intersection, and residents say, well, you forgot about us. And we didn't really forget. We just finished that subsection, and we'll be going on to the next one. But there has to be logical stopping points, and it also has to match in with our roadside mowing. That confuses residents as well. So it's always going to be people, process, and the service we provide. It's not an issue where we can just throw equipment at it and think it's going to fix everything. If we throw equipment at bad process, it's still going to be bad.
Right. I agree with your assessment because it makes no sense when I went down there to take a look at their weed whackers. They didn't have the speed weed whackers, the ones where it automatically spins out and you can do it with your hands really quick versus having to sit down and take 5 to 10 minutes just to wrap a string around versus just twisting it in place like that, and boom, you're right out within 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's important.
Okay, Councilman Jones.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for, again, having this hearing. I'm absolutely for the structure. And I think the only thing I would be interested in is knowing a little bit more, because I think the director's on the right path in terms of his plan. And I think the chief is on the right path in terms of splitting this up so it's more manageable and so not wildly out of control. And I would say that my only thing, Mr. Chairman, is to know a little bit more how the maintenance side is going to evolve as it relates to our recreational facilities.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. I'm going to go to Councilwoman Mar.
Thank you. Oh, I'm not going to get this any closer to me. Hold on. This way I can look at you while I'm asking questions. Good morning. I actually want to go back just to make sure I truly understand and can articulate to my residents some of the basics of the proposal. I just want to say it out loud so that we're all on the same page. We will, under this proposal and this piece of legislation, which is being proposed but not being voted on today, we would create a new director-level position for the Director of Parks and Recreation, who would be in the mayor's cabinet and would pull certain sections out of Public Works. Is that a correct understanding?
That's through the chair to the councilwoman. That's correct.
Okay, great. And I want to make sure that I understand, so the newly created Parks and Recreation Department, if created as proposed here, would include its own administration. When we had spoken earlier, Chief Tia, when you had mentioned that maybe these administrations might share some staff, like IT, things like that, will there be any shared staff in the two administration roles between the newly created Parks and Recreation and the Public Works Department? Through the chair.
The intent is to have two separate administration branches, and it's more on the HR, the payroll side, the legislative side where you need the administrative support. I think initially, as we work through this transition, Frank has graciously offered to help the new director in part of that transition. But as we see, we've literally taken the staff that Frank has, that the director has currently, and decided who fits best in each of the administrative roles for each of the departments.
Thank you. So just to be clear, there might be some shared HR work, but there will be two separate administration offices for two separate departments with two heads that are essentially like co-equal in the org chart for the city as a whole, through the chair?
That's correct.
Okay. And just to review, the newly created Parks and Recreation Department would include, under the administration, Highland Golf Course and West Side Market. Is that correct?
That's correct. And as you know, those two small enterprise have gone to a nonprofit where we no longer have staff.
Mm-hmm.
We previously have had staff in each of those areas, but we no longer support that with actual city employees.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That would then include recreation and park maintenance. This is sort of silly, but in my mind, like if the parks maintenance has divisions of cemeteries, forestry, and greenhouse, it does also include the actual park maintenance, Todd Alexander's shop that will mow the parks separately from the vacant lots, through the chair.
That's correct.
Will that be its own division, or will that sort of be the main job of park maintenance, and then it will have other subdivisions for cemeteries? And
So the divisions will be administrative, recreation, park maintenance, and public auditorium will be the divisions as they show in the budget book currently.
Got it. Okay. I just want to, I'll echo what I think a few folks have mentioned, which is about urban forestry. I would strongly support urban forestry being its own division. The forestry budget is a mess. The further into it I've gotten, we are so lucky to have Forester Kip, who cares about trees and wants to make it happen, but we have not equipped her with the tools to do her job or the budget to do her job, and it is very hard to properly equip her to do what we need to do for the city's trees without an independent budget. So that would be hard to stomach, to do this rearrangement, but not give forestry the opportunity for an independent budget. Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I agree with you, and I look at that as part of the evolution. The goal right now is to be budget neutral and labor neutral. And I think that's one of the first things that we look at is the separation of forestry as its own division and how that, what the vision of that is. One of the things that I can make all these decisions right now with, with the director here as far as what should be what. I do, as we bring in a new director, I want to give them the opportunity to have input into some of those decisions. That person might, the way we have it set up now is that it's in Parks and Rec, that person in consultation with, Director Williams may say that it might fit better in Public Works. So, I want everybody to understand that this is an evolutionary process on how we get to the ultimate award-winning Parks and Rec department. I agree with you, whether it needs to be done right now, we can have that discussion, but I'd like to make this as simple as possible and get the separation going and then let it evolve from there based on, what the director and the current director of Public Works, decide.
Thank you. I guess I'll just respond to that by saying that we're already doing, this is a pretty significant shakeup, and if we know that our trees are going to need some significant investment, and that this has been sort of a troubled area that's been underinvested and frankly has a huge backlog. I have a resident who's waited since the day I got into office. Her tree was supposed to be trimmed. She has been on the list. It has been inspected. It is approved for tree trimming. Literally cannot get this tree trimmed, cannot get a stump removed, cannot get the very basics of urban forestry done. And it's very hard to contemplate the investments that we need, even when we put in, for instance, money from the supplemental budget. It was sort of hard to figure out how to do that because of the arrangement. And I will support forcefully the idea that if we're already going to make these changes and we know that urban forestry is struggling, making it its own division will at least give us a chance in the budget book to genuinely assess where it's at and the investments that we need. With that, I will turn to my other favorite topic, which is grass, especially this time of year. So I just want to be very clear for the folks listening that the anticipation here is that vacant lots and vacant structures will be mowed under Public Works in what would you call a section that is directly under Director Williams. Is that a correct understanding?
That is correct.
Great. And I guess I'm curious, sort of like you're talking a lot about evolution. Where do we go from here? There's already been evolution in this department in terms of trying to get the vacant structures mowed with private contractors, which has had delays this year. What are your anticipated next steps as this comes under your purview, Director, to get us correctly resourced to tackle the difficult challenge we have of dealing with 20,000 plus vacant lots and structures?
Through the chair to the council member, one of the things this year I'll be doing is we're taking a look at how we utilize the local contractors as it relates to the trimming and also the cleanup piece as well. We're looking at, I'm hoping to, at the end of this year, make some very real recommendations on equipment as well as our process refinements that we're working through right now. One of the things that we're trying to do is really sync up the timing between when a structure is cut and then when that cleanup crew comes back or when a vacant lot, because a lot of times it looks bad, number one,
yeah.
And number two, it takes too long in between those times. So we're looking at what we can do to keep that going. Also, we want to really make sure what we do in the off season preps us for getting started in the early season. We started a lot of processes in January and they still didn't necessarily line up to timing wise for us this year. So we're looking at now looking looking at some things to start this year for next year, as far as soon as we go into winter mode, really starting the process to getting, for example, any RFPs or any local contractors, starting those orientations during the off season. So as soon as we bring those folk on, they can just get to work versus having those time gaps that we've been looking at. So again, looking at people, process, and the service is always a thing that we'll be doing. But similar to how I mentioned in snow and ice control, it's always snowing, and we have to kind of keep that in mind. That's why we have a lot of work during the summer getting prepared for the winter program, but we need to do a better job during the winter getting prepared for the spring programs. So those are the things. That's why I want those processes in my office so that I can oversee them directly going forward.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that, and you're completely right. That gap between the tractor crews and the trimming crews is such a struggle, because then there's basically no period of time where the lot looks nice because the tractor crew comes in and then the edging and the tree lawn hasn't been done, so that grass still gets high, and then by the time that crew comes 2 to 3 weeks later, the main grass has already grown again, so there's sort of no relief. So I'm really glad that has been identified as an issue. I mean, I think we have big fish to fry, but I think that kind of mindset, gives me a level of comfort about, digging into the question of grass mowing. I think that this grass mowing is, we've sort of let it go for a long time, and the old system was kind of going along, and the number of lots that we are handling has just totally outpaced our resources to do it. And so we're kind of at a point where now in a spring like this, we all feel it on this council because we get the calls every single day that and you do too. I don't want to pretend that you don't. And every once in a while when someone's really mad, I tell them to give you a ring.
Well, they find it.
Yeah, they find you one way or the other. And those poor. I also want to acknowledge, like, a lot of we have callers our call takers at 311 who are also getting a brunt of this, and aren't equipped with the schedules and resources and tools to be able to share necessarily when that lot is getting cut. And so we have a lot of people in the city who are taking a lot of heat on this, and so I think we all are incentivized to fix it. But I trust you and respect you to do that work, and it's going to be a challenge, but it's also going to be one of the measures of how well we succeed at running this city. So I'm grateful for your willingness to take on that role.
Thank you, Councilman.
I'm done, Chair.
Oh, thank you, Councilwoman. We're going to go next to Councilman Danny Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Director, thanks for being here. It's been informative. I know this is going to evolve, and I appreciate that. Quickly, though, I will stand with my colleagues. I think you really need to look at urban forestry to be standalone. I know Milady Kip is doing a good job, but they're underwoman, they're undermanned, they're undertooled. It's very distressful for our residents when they know they have to wait 2 to 5 years to get something done. So I appreciate you looking at that. Just a couple points or thoughts. First of all, on the tools, whether you're on a skyscraper or whether you're doing a parks, 50% of getting the job done is having the right tools. So I appreciate you specifically saying how you're looking at it and trying them out and doing that, because that's part of the problem. The other thing I'd like to mention is the pay. I don't know. I know we have a tight budget here come December. We need to look at it. For the lifeguards, we're going to have a tough time this year hiring lifeguards again, because $15 an hour isn't just, or $15.33, the wage, you probably need to go 20 or more. I don't know. We have to figure out a way to pay to be able to get enough people to do things. My pools last year in Center is trying, they couldn't get the people because they couldn't get the pay, and it's probably the same thing with our seasonal. I know some of us here are colleagues. The company you have now, we're just a little concerned about. I know it's not always the company's fault, because everybody's having trouble finding people.
Absolutely.
And I have a building trades thing coming up in Ward. We're having trouble finding people that make great money, but they got to do physical work in the weather, and it's just not that appealing right now. So I appreciate that. The parks, I don't know what we can do, but I need us to collaborate with whatever the mayor's office has with, I think it's Emily and the homeless, I don't know if you call it division, and then law enforcement, because in my parks I have a lot of homeless and tents, and we want to be kind and get them to go somewhere else, but there's needles all over the place. I mean, when you go to play a baseball game, you got to clean the needles off the dugouts. I mean, these are kids, let alone, and when they're in the parks, there's needles on the parks. So we've got to figure out some way to do that, because we're not going to have our parents letting our kids go to their parks, and then I have parents out there looking to clean stuff up. We were doing it in my ward the other day, and somebody got stuck with the needle, even though they were watching, and the needle it's probably been over 24 hours for what they tell me, and it's okay, but they had to go to the hospital. Now they got to go every month or 3 months and get blood work. So maybe we need a division or something like that where somebody has the proper gloves and tools to clean that up. I know Emily had mentioned they might have it, but I didn't know till after the fact. So, but while you're doing it in parks, I need you to really look with whatever other divisions, because the parks become a place where people congregate, in tents, and it becomes problematic. So please, whatever you're doing, keep that in mind. I just appreciate it, whether you're doing a skyscraper or parks, it's all logistics, folks, and we need to really start looking into logistics, and it starts from the top down. I appreciate, Director, it starts from the top down, and you're a good leader, okay? And when we're both on our knees, Pastor, talking to our Creator, and I want you to know, not only Joe Jones likes you, okay? There's other people at this table that like you.
Thank you, sir.
But it has to start there. Like, we need to not be so sleepy with our employees performing their task at hand, and that comes with pride. And that starts with the head on down. And whatever we need to do, certainly council here be willing, man, I'll buy Angelo's Pizza, we'll give them resolutions, whatever we need to do. But we're willing all to get in, because it does become a problem. But I appreciate you finally taking a deep look at this to get it so the logistics work. Do keep in mind urban forestry. A lot of us feel they need to be standalone, and I know we're evolving and you're looking at it, but keep that in mind. Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
All right, thank you, Councilman Kelly. I got a couple more questions. I want some clarification on a piece of legislation. Chief, we have some amendments within the legislation, Section 13107. And I look for the actual language in that amendment, but I haven't been able to locate that. But I want some clarification on amendments, Section 13107, 13110, 13121 and 22, 13131, 13134. And also I have a questions about 133, 11, 12, and 13 when it says reserve. And what does that mean when they say reserve? But those are the questions I have on those amendments, right within the legislation. This is within the legislation, Councilman Jones.
Would you be able to repeat those?
Okay, I'm going to start. The amendments that I want clarification on is Section 13107. And that's, I can tell you, I can tell you the page numbers in the legislation. It's on page 1. Well, this is in the legislation right here, Councilman Jones. But the first page, it says Section 13107. Then a couple lines down, it says Section 13110, as amended, ordinance 132818 passed November 2018. Section, and then on page 2, Amendment 131.21 and 22. And then Section 131.31 and 131.34. I want some clarification on those amendments. And the reason why I want, those are recent amendments. Now, all these other amendments, they were passed back in 2011, 2010. But these legislations, they were passed within the last few years. So I want some clarification of those amendments, okay?
Just for clarity, Councilman, do you just want copies of what those amendments are?
Yeah, what are those
Okay.
amendments? So, because we have these written right in the piece of legislation, so,
Correct.
and I don't see, and of course, I looked on the tablet, and I couldn't locate what these, and to get a clarification on these amendments. Okay? And then in section 133-11, 133-12, and 133-13, when it says reserve, what does that mean? I want a clarification on that.
-12. 12, yeah. Yeah, so they're just being, it's just held. And council, or chair, those are sections that are, there's no information in those, and they're just being held. The number is just being held.
Okay, all right, okay, that's what it means.
So there's no information that needs to be in those sections. They're just being held for possible future use.
Okay, so it says reserved in the legislation, Councilman Jones. That's why I want clarification on that. But the other amendments that I stated, I want some clarification. I want to know I want to see the language of what those are. Okay.
We'll provide that information.
Okay, no
to you.
problem. Is there any other questions on this piece of legislation? No, Mr. Chairman. All right. Seeing no further questions, we will adjourn this meeting. We will move this piece of legislation forward, pending my clarification on these amendments. Okay. We have any other questions, Bonnie? Chief. I'm sorry. We have any other questions, Chief? We'll surely get them to you, and also to you, Director, as well. And I want to thank you for the presentation, Chief and Director. Again, is there any other questions on ordinance number 52124?
Clarification.
Councilman Starr.
So clarification, are we looking to pass this ordinance today, pending receiving the updates regarding those questions you asked for each section regarding this ordinance 521?
Councilman Starr, we're not going to pass this legislation today. We're going to move it forward. We have a committee next Monday, but I want to make sure that if anybody has any questions, any concerns of this piece of legislation, before we go to make this thing official as far as our council authority, we have that time to deliberate. All right, any other questions? No, Mr. Chairman. All right, seeing no further questions, Municipal Service and Properties is adjourned to the next call of the chair.